What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're going to be taking a look at WandaVision, the Disney Plus TV series set in the MCU. WandaVision tells a story about how Wanda Maximoff enslaves an entire town because she's grieving over the death of Vision, and by doing so, she creates this idyllic sitcom life for herself, while all the while holding an entire town hostage and at her mercy. Yes, that's the overall premise of the WandaVision TV show. It tricks you into thinking that Wanda is this victim, when in actuality, she is the victimizer. So let's just try and get this review done as short as we can. I'm gonna do brief summarizations of every episode and then pretty much give my thoughts on the show overall. So without further ado, let's get started. So episodes 1 and 2 of this show pretty much does nothing but set up characters and set up the situation. If I have anything positive to say about the first 2 episodes, is that I like the recreation aesthetic of 50s and 60s sitcoms. I like the attention to detail. And in episode 2, Paul Bettany gets to show off some actually pretty decent physical comedy, which is actually pretty fun. But in terms of overall story progression, nothing really happens in episodes 1 and 2. They're the definition of filler, and it's just setting up characters that are going to be along the way. But the major one out of all of them set up is the character of Agnes, played by Catherine Hahn. Episode 3 is where the show actually starts to, pick up some steam and goes into this 1970s aesthetic of sitcoms. This is the introduction of Monica Rambeau, who is a character from Captain Marvel, where she was a little girl. Now she's all grown up, as it takes place in more or less a present day. The character of Monica Rambeau in Wanda's altered reality is a character called Gwendoline, or whatever. And episode 3 also starts to hint that something is not right with Wanda. We don't know if she's being mind controlled by something or if she's doing something out of her own free will. But the show starts to plant teasers of what might be happening. Also, Wanda and Vision end up having twins named Billy and Tommy. So yeah, that's pretty much what happens in episode 3. Monica gets introduced, the twins are born, and hints of Wanda's hints of a sinister nature for Wanda are being teased. We get to episode 4, and we see the return of Darcy, who was a character from the Thor movies. We see Jimmy Woo, who was a character from Ant-Man and Wasp. We get introduction to Taylor Hayward, who is a director of S.W.O.R.D., who starts off as someone that we are meant to like. He doesn't, but you can tell he has like an attitude for him. But at the same time, he had a close connection with Monica's mother, Marie, who was also a character from Captain Marvel. And also in this episode, we get an origin for Monica in terms of her present-day counterpart. We find out that she was snapped away from existence, and that when she came back from the blip, her mother died of cancer. And this is what led Monica to pretty much join S.W.O.R.D. as an agent. So, okay. Monica's origin is actually pretty well handled. I ain't gonna lie. It does a decent job at fitting her into the story. We see what happened. We see how the death of her mother affected her. We see her team up with Hayward. We see her go undercover into Westview, which is the town that Wanda is possessing, and we see her pretty much become a part of this fictional sitcom-like community. And we also see the events that led to her being exiled from said community. So I thought that all that was handled fairly decently, and it's the confirmation that there's something wrong with Wanda, as she forces Monica out of her little idyllic existence. We get to episode 5, which features a more 1980s aesthetic in terms of its sitcom satire. Episode 5, a lot happens. Wanda. We see footage of Wanda stealing Vision's corpse. We see Vision start to suspect Wanda's evil nature. But the big takeaway from episode 5, we see Quicksilver, and we don't just see Quicksilver. We see the Fox X-Men version of Quicksilver played by Evan Peters. This episode, when I first saw this last year on initial viewing, This is where the show finally got my interest, and this opened up the whole possibilities that maybe WandaVision is going to be the start of the whole multiverse concept that Phase 4 is exploring. So maybe Wanda, in her grief, because she misses her brother so much, and knowing that she can't do necromancy, maybe she pulled her brother from a different reality just to cope with that loss. You know, sets up something interesting. Season 5. Episode 6, I'm sorry. Episode 6 is a Halloween-themed episode, and nothing really of note happens, nor does anything expand upon the idea that episode 5 had set up. If any takeaways from episode 6, I like the whole Halloween themed episode. I like how we get to see the comic book accurate costumes for Vision, Wanda, and Quicksilver. I thought that was cool. Billy and Tommy start to discover that they got powers of themselves, which is interesting. They eventually become the characters of Wicked and Speed, Young Avengers. Agatha and Vision start to have this foreshadowing conversation that really starts to plant the seed that something may not be right with the character of Agnes, which eventually happens in the next episode. We see Vision try to leave the Hex and pretty much warn Hayward and his man that there's something happening, and this leads to Wanda expanding the Hex even more, which encapsulates a number of agents, including Darcy, into its fictional world. Now we get to episode 7. No, Darcy and Sword agents are trapped inside the Hex. They're now as circus performers. Okay, whatever. Agatha reveals herself as a villain. So the character of Agnes, who was peppered all throughout the show as like the nosy neighbor and friend of Wanda, she's now revealed to be an actual villain who was never being controlled by Wanda in the first place. She's actually a witch. That is from the 1600s during the Salem witch trials. Okay, all right, okay, you got my interest. And we also find out that Monica also finds Agnes's lair, but she's caught by Quicksilver. Okay, what's happening? Is Agnes mind controlling Quicksilver? And now Wanda's got to find a way to try and save her brother, her newly resurrected brother, from being used as a pawn. We'll get to episode 8. We'll see what happens. Episode 8, the penultimate episode, does little to no expansion of the main story. Instead, episode 8 just exposits so much exhibition and grinds the story to a complete and utter halt. We get an origin for Agatha, which pretty much explains that she was a witch from the 1600s. We get Wanda's full backstory, in which we find out that she was born with her powers. Basically, the show is trying to tell you that Wanda's a mutant without saying the word mutant, which is really confounding and confusing. Just call her a mutant. And it's also revealed that the Tesseract just heightened the powers that were already inside Wanda. Just call her a mutant. We also find out that Vision had actually bought the house in Westview that he and Wanda live in, and because of her grief, that is where she alters reality and pretty much puts the entire town of Westview under her mind control. We also see and also in this episode, Wanda by Agnes is called the Scarlet Witch, who is this mythological being that uses chaos magic that can rival that of the Sorcerer Supreme. And in a mid-credit scene, we see that Hayward has the original corpse of Vision, and that Wanda never stole Vision's corpse. So yeah, Hayward is going to use a white version of Vision to combat Wanda. And now we get to episode 9. And whoa, is episode 9 loaded with a lot of garbage. So we get the battle of the two visions. We get Wanda's vision versus the white vision, and a battle that ends with WandaVision freeing White Vision's mind and giving him back his memories. And then White Vision just flies away after a very just uneventful battle between the two. Like, the battle was so boring, it wasn't even funny. Like, nothing really happens, to be honest with you. Agatha and Wanda have this light show battle, which nothing really of interest really happens. spew out a lot of dialogue with Agnes saying whatever and Wanda saying whatever. Nothing really happens. We get a follow-up to Monica and Quicksilver, where it's revealed that this was never Quicksilver to begin with. So throughout this show, Agnes keeps making references to an unnamed husband she calls Ralph. And it's revealed that was never Quicksilver. It was just some guy named Ralph Boner who was given powers of speedster by Agnes. Pretty much, we just cast Evan Peters just to get the fans' expectations up, only to pay it off with a dick joke. Stay classy. Oh, yeah. Stupid. Dumb. One of the many issues I have with the show is how they butchered something that could have been quite interesting with Evan Peters' return, and they just did it for a dick joke. Very mature. Monica then saves Billy and Tommy, WandaVision's kids, from Hayward, who tries to kill them. Okay, whatever. Wanda then embraces her Scarlet Witch persona and ends up trapping Agatha in her sitcom persona of Agnes, and then she, disappears with Vision to Westworld. They put their kids to sleep. After the hex starts to break down and Wanda's control over the town starts to break down along with it. Hayward gets arrested for his crimes. Monica meets the Skrulls, setting up Captain Marvel 2, and Wanda then studies this dark hold, which is called the Book of the Damned, which can explain the powers that she has, while all the while she hears her kids plea. So yes, those are brief summarizations of every single episode of this show. My overall thoughts of WandaVision is this. This show started off boring. It then started to get interesting with episode 3. By episode 5, intrigue was rising. Episode 6 was kind of stalling. Episode 7 is where this entire show just starts to fall apart, and I'm just left scratching my head. In the end, what was the purpose of this show? What were you trying to accomplish? I understand that this show's main concept was to try and deal with the grieving process and what grieving can do to a person, but you did it in a way where Wanda does not come across as somebody I feel sympathetic with. She comes across as somebody who I want to see get stopped because she's doing these dastardly things. She literally held an entire town hostage. Not only that, she has convinced herself that what she's doing is a morally good thing, and the only rational person who says, hey, this is a problem, is the character of Hayward, who the show just villainizes out of left field. And the revelation of Agnes being a witch the entire time was also taken out of left field after the show was dropping a lot of hints to maybe Mephisto being the puppet master. Now, I think this show should have just gone full on with Mephisto being the puppet master. The only way to make this concept work, this concept of grief works, is if Wanda makes a deal with Mephisto, which then allows her to have this perfect life she wants so much. But since Mephisto is the devil, you got to give him something in return. So yeah, Mephisto grants your wish, but Mephisto also says that in order for you to maintain this illusion, you have to force these people of this idyllic town to be a part of your illusion. And if you break this illusion, I'll take everything you ask for away. And to make sure that this stays put, Mephisto uses the character of Agnes to kind of be like this overlooker to make sure Wanda keeps her end of the bargain. That is the only way this thing could have really worked, but it does not go that route. It goes the route of having Wanda do villainous things because she's sad. Oh, poor Wanda. I do not feel sorry for you. Get over it. Seriously, get over it. And this show has the award-winning line when Monica says that the people of Westview will never understand what Wanda sacrificed in order for them to be freed. Monica, that line makes you come across as a complete and utter retard. This woman held an entire town hostage against their will. She's going to give them psychological damage for the rest of their lives. They're never going to trust any more superpowered beings. Oh, because she was sad. If this show's intent was to have Scarlet Witch just become a villain of the MCU, okay, this would have been a good turn from Wanda abandoning her post as an Avenger and just wanting to go full on villain because she wants the life that was taken from her. And by joining up with the devil, she pretty much cemented her fate as a villainous person where there's no coming back from this. But no, the show tries to manipulate you and does a piss poor job at doing so. So yeah, the overall premise of WandaVision starts out interesting and then falls apart because what it does to these characters is completely mind-bogglingly stupid. It makes these characters stupid, and it makes certain characters who are rational into villains without any real justification behind that. It forces things onto you which is so dumb and so stupid. But that's not to say this show is not without some positives. No, the acting all around is actually very good. I like it. I like the sitcom aesthetics that every single episode does have. I think for a TV show, the special effects are actually pretty decent and they look pretty good. You know, I like certain aspects of Wanda's backstory. I like certain aspects of Monica's backstory that gets her to the present day. No, I did not mind Catherine Hahn as Agatha. You could tell she was having a lot of fun in the role, playing this over-the-top cheesy villain. Paul Bettany was a standout to me because this man got to explore the character of Vision more and actually had a lot of moments to do some good dramatic acting and some good comedy acting. Like, this show did have some good positives to it. You know, the cinematography does look really, really good, but the story and the plot points that happen in the story just don't work for me because they just fall apart. And the underutilization of Evan Peters and just using him just to do a dick joke instead of exploring the multiverse is complete and utter garbage, and it sucks. So yeah, I'm sorry. At the end of the day, I'm gonna give I'm giving WandaVision a 5 out of 10. This show did more things that irritated me than it did things that I enjoyed. 5 out of 10, middle of the road. A really mediocre start to the Disney Plus side of the MCU. But yeah, those are my thoughts on WandaVision. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.